morning, and thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you all of you for joining so early for the first panel. This is called the dead panel because morning panels are never fun. Most of the people still need the second or third cup of coffee. So thank you so much, and I hope you are all caffeinated. And after the long commute, we were just having a chat about it. And our topic is very interesting. Okay, for the longest times, the dashboard of most of the CMOs has been lit up and brightened with likes, clicks, CTRs. But more and more, CMOs are now finding themselves being questioned on some very critical aspects, especially when they speak to the board members. They are being asked how the conversations have shifted from ROIs, conversations to ROIs. They have to stop talking about what really looks good, what makes a brand look very effervescent, to what has actually translated into tangible benefits. And that's why the theme, Beyond Vanity Matrix. And it couldn't have been timelier, especially as we enter the festive season. And we've got a powerhouse panel over here. I have Anup, Arvind, Priyanka, and Sandeep. They all, and the best part is this, diverse sectors over here. We are missing Samir, but I've been told that he'll be joining us. So let's dive straight in. And Anup, I thought I'll start with you since you're sitting right next to me. Marketers know that clicks and views don't always move the business needle, Yet, vanity metrics still dominate dashboards. Why do you think CMOs go back to the habit of falling back to them?
So thank you. So I was one of the first people on this panel to say I don't agree with this term vanity metrics, but I think to answer your question, all of us need leading indicators and there are always lagging indicators, right? Unfortunately, growth is always a lagging indicator, and which is what we're all chasing. And hence, I think, and because of the way marketing has evolved from television to digital, and there are no real metrics like we had for TV. Like when we were growing up, you knew what the metrics were if you were putting a TV campaign out there. Nobody really knew, and we all had to adapt. So I think it's a combination of those two things. I think what we are terming as vanity metrics are input metrics sometimes. So yeah, I also remember telling my team at some point, don't tell me about impressions, because that is just because we were used to GRPs that people started talking about impressions. So CMOs do have to pick and choose, but at the end of the day, like I said, there are leading metrics and there are lagging metrics, and you use clicks, not impressions, but clicks for sure is a leading metric. Google search for your brand is a leading metric. Doesn't necessarily have to convert into growth if your processes and your systems are not strong enough, but I do think that's why we end up having to look at all these metrics. And but having said that, I think the only one metric that's important is growth at the end of the day.
Okay. You use some amazing catchphrases over there. Leading metrics, lagging metrics, and I think, Priyanka, you have a vantage position when it comes to that. And from that position, while I know that Anup was not very comfortable with the phrase vanity matrix, I wanted to ask you, given your position at Amazon Ads, which vanity metrics or which terminology do you see brands still obsessing over? And what are the tangible risks when decisions are based solely on these surface level matrix by itself?
Yeah. So, see, in my opinion, what generally, people look at are campaign metrics, right? So, the general thing is, for awareness, you look at reach, impressions, and then you sort of look at awareness lifts. And then on the other hand, when it comes to performance, you look at conversions, add to carts, and sales. I think what happens is people do this in silos, and when they do it in silos, they start missing, a full view of what is happening. And we now all know that, consumers are spending time on shopping, on streaming, on social. So, I mean, they're spending time on many, many touch points and channels, and influence can happen from, everywhere. I mean, a performance campaign can actually lead to a discovery of a new brand for a consumer or for a person, and likewise, like a brand campaign can also lead to, a sale in the near term. So I think it's important to look at, a holistic view and plan and look at planning or a marketing input that, drives the awareness to consideration to purchase, as jargonistic as it may sort of seem, but I think it is having a view of how are you moving consumers down the funnel. And so therefore, I think the risk that you run is if you don't look at the full funnel, you only get caught into looking at specific metrics, but not really understanding how are you moving and how are people moving down the funnel. And therefore, tracking other things, which can give you more sort of health, more indicators of how your brand is doing. How many people are searching for your brand actually is, even though Anup is said it's a leading indicator, but it's actually a very high quality indicator, because it's an indication of intent at a very early stage. So what you've done is, getting people interested in your brand and getting them to think of your brand with an intent, and therefore they search. So, I mean, so likewise I said, I mean, we should look at a full funnel according to me and go beyond the surface level metrics to look at brand oriented things like, how many new customers are trying your brand. How many people are, in our context of retail media, how many people are really, coming to your product page? How many people are really seeing your product and spending time? So while these are early indicators, they help you to understand the impact in the near term, and of course, growth and sales and overall brand health is a longer term horizon metrics. But these can help you to take actions and pivot strategy in order to impact your long term goals.
So that's a very interesting point that you made, that, a lot of times, though the landscape by itself has changed, and now you have myriad channels that are there, each of them can help in identifying intent, then helping in discovery, then also helping in the conversion. So, Sameer is sitting literally, if I were to say, on the side of the truth machine. And, a lot of verification platforms can often expose a gap that exists between what's reported in the various dashboards and what's actually seen or discovered. So, Sameer, what patterns are you seeing in India when it comes to viewability? And, there could be some invalid traffic that is coming from silos, as Priyanka mentioned. And what exactly do you think do these things tell us about the addiction that many CMOs still have when it comes to vanity matrix?
Right. Thank you. First of all, apologies for being late. I was statistically on time, but yeah, this panel started a little early. But, like Anup mentioned, and I heard a part of your answer, and Priyanka, what you mentioned. Historically, what has happened is that we've always prioritized volume over value, right? And that's got nothing to do with why we wanted to do it. It was essentially what the tools allowed us to do. Now the tools are there which tell you when you're buying impressions, how much of them are actually being seen by a real human being, are being served to a real human being, whether it has had a chance to be seen by a real human being or not. If you look at the fraudulent activity, our Global Insights reports tells you that there's been an increase of over 27% or 26 to 27% over the last year on year in fraudulent activities. And app fraud and bot frauds, share is 2 times of any other fraud in that. So, on one side there is invalid traffic that is coming in, so that obviously should not get into your supply chain, right? The other part of it is whether the ad is being seen in the right context, right? The impressions are going to increase, and we see so many different platforms, the consumer touch points, like Priyanka mentioned. It's fluid. Consumers are today moving very fluidly between the different stages of decision making. They're discovering there is no one platform that is out there for discovery or commerce. It is interchangeable today. That play becomes extremely crucial to understand the consumer journey is not linear anymore. The platforms like Double Verify help advertisers have a baseline of media quality and then see whether the strategy, like you mentioned, that it is an input, that input is working for you or not. And if not, you are able to then pivot back and change the strategy and again define the media quality that is going to work for you. I think that is changing, and fundamentally where we are as a marketing, a country that prides itself in its marketing, I think we are seeing that change come in. Advertisers are no longer asking if my ad was seen advertisers are coming in and asking if they were seen by a real human being, if they did something, what context were they seen, and if it led to an action. And that, according to me, is the performance imperative.
That's very interesting, and I'm now going to segue to you, Arvind, is that what Sameer just mentioned is that, it's not a linear journey anymore, given the number of screens that are there or the number of options that consumers have to lean into when it comes to conversation. So, and the very scale at which McDonald's as a QSR brand converses with the consumers has also evolved. So, when a CFO asks you for proof of a campaign that worked, what are some of the metrics that make it to the boardroom table, and especially in a business as high volume and sometimes as experiential as the food business?
I think great question. In our context, especially, there is the quarter se quarter tak results, and hence the need to prove. But what over time we realized that there are two dimensions which are best taken to approach this whole area. First is short term and long term, right? There is no long term if you don't win in the short term, right? So in the short term, it's all about how many app launches have happened, is as per target, right? How many orders have been placed, what's the conversion, right? And it's a daily business, right? But in the long term, right, I think you alluded to it, it's about penetration, right? India is a vastly underpenetrated country. So the huge opportunity is there to add new consumers and grow your base, right? But that's going to take time. But are you growing penetration over time? These are just examples, but I think the point I'm making is short-term metrics and long-term metrics. Both are so crucial. Marketers make the mistake of overemphasizing the short-term metrics, and hence you have the whole story of branding versus performance, where branding gets lost because performance gets the majority of resource. The other lens that will be very useful for a boardroom is measurement. How strong is your measurement systems? And I think brands underinvest in measurement. Their view of measurement is leaving it to the platforms. Unfortunately, each of the platforms have got a very different measurement system. So what is the overall perspective for the CMO across the board when there are some 50 to 80 platforms where your campaigns are running? So the first one is attribution, and second one is incrementality. Right? It's very important not just to focus on attribution, because that's where the major focus is there today. But for a CFO or for the board, what is your ROI and what is the incremental revenue you have brought with your spends? And there are various ways to go about doing this. Market mix modeling is a technique that we use to kind of prove the ROI of investments, short term and long term. But I think my stress here is the incrementality. Difficult to measure. Incrementality need not be just science-based tools like market mix modeling. It could be test and pilot, right? You are running a campaign in one geography and you're not running it in another geography. What is the incrementality? Very easy to do this, especially in a retail business, but I would imagine in most business, test and pilot is easy to do. And that incrementality story, right, is what you can prove to first yourself, that this campaign is working or not working, and then sell it to the stakeholders, right? And put the money in the right avenues rather than in the wasteful avenues. So these are my thoughts on this.
Okay, so Arvind, staying with you and taking away from what you just mentioned about the measurement approach, right? It's always easy to connect with something that's said when you have instances or anecdotes to adhere to it. So can you share an example where focusing on a wrong metric maybe led to a misaligned strategy or a missed opportunity, and how that learning reshaped the measurement approach at McDonald's?
Sure. I think I would take the example of pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, right? So we used to have, again, market mix modeling led, allocation of media resources in the pre-pandemic. But when we realized that the post-pandemic world is not the same, in our context, for example, food delivery grew really about 2.5x, 3x post-pandemic, right? The food delivery business for us was about 20-25% pre-pandemic. Now it's at 40%. That's just an example. But the same assumptions don't hold true anymore, right? So how do you, and we went wrong in a few campaigns, first few campaigns in the post-pandemic, right? So we had to redo all our learnings in the new context. And like I said, measure the incrementality of each of the medium. And that's when we realized that we were chasing the wrong things, and a lot of ad dollars were wasteful. Way to put the marketing dollars, let's say it's Instagram and YouTube, and not necessarily linear TV or outdoor. So that, I think, was a big learning for us, where we did some mistakes, we recalibrated the approach. So my learning from this is that sometimes context change. And your learnings have to adapt to the new contexts, and not the whole same cut, dried, or copy paste approach works all the time.
So if I were to talk about context changing, and Sandeep, I'll come to you, is that a lot of the context definitely changed in the pandemic, okay? And we saw that most significantly in the BFSI sector, right? And you have also seen metrics evolve from GRPs in FMCG to impressions in BFSI. So looking back, which benchmarks have actually proven to be indicative of business value? And how, according to you, has that evolution influenced how you measure marketing effectiveness in contemporary times?
Awesome, yeah. So, hi. Hello. Hi, can you hear me? All right. So, 30 years FMCG, retail, and now BFSI, or 12, 13 years. The one metric I would single out as the most relevant is the customer lifetime value. And it's interpreted differently in different spheres. It's different in FMCG, different in retail. In BFSI, it's extremely important because, so while you reach and you are visible, and, people come and download your app and they invest through that app. And I'm going to be talking more about the investment and wealth management side of BFSI. That's just the top of the funnel. My colleagues have spoken about it. What matters is whether that customer is able to grow wealth using your input. Now, a brand like Motilal Oswal that is very, very intelligently distinguished from the competitors, to the extent that from the very beginning they said that we will give you a great app, but that will be just a platform. Apart from that, we're going to give you research-based advice, and that is going to be individualized to you. Now, that's a very strong business differentiator, which marketing, is very, very proudly taking forward. So, using that yardstick, what matters to us, more than how many apps were downloaded and how many people transacted using that, is how many people took our advice, acted on it. Right? So, our researchers are actually tasked basis the call that you gave out, how many people actually invested basis that. And how many actually made money using that, and what was the AUM growth at the end of the year. So this is one part of it, as to whether I was able to add value to the customer. The second part is the products per customer, right? So multiple investment products, whether the portfolio is probably built properly or not. So that's the second aspect of it, which is again business building, right? So while, vanity matrices are like penny stocks in our parlance, great to trade in them, but they don't create long-term wealth. So we focus more on long-term wealth. There is another very interesting aspect in investing side of BFSI, which is over trading. Okay. Now, if you indiscriminately apply the vanity matrices, and that has happened over the fintech side of broking. I don't want to name competitors, but they push you to do, indiscriminate trading and FNO trading. And, SEBI has come out and said 93% of those investors lose money. But somebody is going to get a bonus because, the number of transactions went up. And, there is a cute little term in our industry called high volume traders. To me, it's a danger bell. If the person is not well equipped and well trained, that is a short way of, basically breaking somebody's house. For us, the even more important metric is the sustainability and longevity, of that person's overall financial wealth. So those are the three additional dimensions I can add to the discussion that has already happened.
That's an interesting point, but I'll lean back on one of the points that was raised earlier, and I'll come to you, Anup, and that was about the fragmentation that is there, all right? You've often spoken about the challenges of fragmentation in the past, from what I remember, and especially about the fragmented data that is available on walled gardens, whether it's Meta, Google, Geo, Cinema, the works. Now, given that there is no single measure that can tell us the entire story, how can BFSI entities build attribution models that reflect marketing's true contribution to growth?
Okay. I don't know if the answer is only for BFSI, but I do agree that market mix modeling helps. And usually it's left to the CMOs, though market mix modeling is actually a business tool. And I think the job of a CMO is becoming, like somebody once said, you have to coordinate between different departments. So there's digital, there's business intelligence, the campaign teams, your own top of the funnel teams, product teams. So we are all chasing this, but the organization is structured in a silo, right? And unfortunately, for all of us, technology is actually bringing everything together. So I think market mix modeling helps, but like I said, it's something that happens after you've gone through the campaign. So I totally agree with what Priyanka is saying, that we need to align the metrics across the funnel, across the various constituents of the organization. So it's more an organizational structure problem than I think having the right data, because the data is there and it's available to different people. It's just that, like the proverbial blind man and the elephant, they're all viewing it in a different way. So just zooming out and getting that picture across to the boardroom and the CEO is probably the CMO's job, and ensuring that the metrics are, there are handshakes. Even if you don't have the same metrics, there are handshakes between different teams, I think is something that we are trying to do. And yeah, that's, I think, the way to go. But I think there is no one, if there's one answer, it is, to just step back and look at everything we're doing in marketing, including like in our organizations, we do a lot of email marketing. A lot of you would be getting calls from us saying, "Sir, aapko loan chahiye." So, you have to stop. That's because there is one team who's got a target and they're chasing their target. But if you then take a customer view and a customer lifetime view, and most of BFSI products are based, you don't buy a car when you're, you might, but you generally tend to buy a car when you just started working, or a vehicle. So if you know that, then you plug the right product to that customer. And I think with AI coming in, the ability to get all of this together is going to become much easier than it was before.
No, you're right about that, but it's, what I have also noticed is that a lot of your, data is there. I mean, almost all of you all have mentioned about it, and I'm coming to you, Priyanka, is that while there are so many data-rich channels that are there, the one thing that I find many marketers are skeptical or a little worried about is that they are very trust sensitive, right? So, and as AI and automation is entering the entire measurement mix, how do you see the marketing metrics evolve over the next 5 years? Across any of the sectors, it does not have to be, it can be sector agnostic. So how do you see that evolution panning?
So like I said, moving towards a full view, Anup sort of alluded to it. I think there are two issues, there are 2 points to it. One is the mindset change and people really understanding and adapting to the need for a full view, and then a structure change. And of course, underlying over there is the ability to be able to see measurable outcomes and build frameworks that can aid this transition. Like I said, one is importance of looking at metrics beyond delivery, and each sector, each industry will know what are the other brand health indicative metrics that are useful or valuable. Could be like an incremental sort of how often or how many products the person is using, or what's the overall revenue you're getting in the near term. So one is that thing, and like I said, from an Amazon point of view, we are trying to build that language. We are trying to simplify it for brands to understand these metrics, and also help them. It's not just about metrics, but also understanding, what is happening downstream. And it's not just also about looking at campaign to campaign, but maybe having a view over a quarter. You know, how many new customers do you have? How are they increasing over a quarter? What's your search trend over a quarter? So those are really indications of, you know, a more stronger health versus immediate, you know, reach impressions, but also sort of, you know, leading to increase in penetration and sales over a period of time. And beyond that, of course, and retail media does have intelligence tools. We are investing heavily to sort of bring that to and use it for brands, where we bring in these insights, these metrics that can help. And you know, this is data not in isolation. This is data for a brand, you know, with reference to the category. So that can help brands identify strengths and opportunities and pivot their strategies, you know, to sort of move towards their goal. And let me take an example to tell you, you know, how this works. So for example, for a leading sports brand, one of the issues that was identified was when you were diagnosing how to sort of drive growth, or why the sales is sort of slowing down on the platform, we realized that there are a lot of people searching for the brand, but you know, the brand pages were not getting enough views. So the problem, you know, was that people were interested in the brand, therefore they were searching for the brand, but there was not enough visibility for the brand. So then the ads team sort of built a plan, which was to sort of increase, you know, visits through the product page and get more and more people to see the product. And this was all sort of being planned for a Prime Day to a festive season kind of an event. So what that ended up doing was, you know, more and more people came to the brand pages, they saw the brand, and that led to more downstream sort of, you know, conversions happening in that period at a much faster rate, leading to an overall increase, you know, 1.5x sales in that time. So it's this diagnosis of, you know, at a brand level, at a consumer into brand kind of a framework that, you know, we are enabling. And then of course we have an Amazon Marketing Cloud, which helps to look at advertising with a full view, where you can actually go and break down and see, you know, what is the impact of using one ad solution or two ad solutions, and what metrics sort of it drives up. And last but not the least, we are creating bespoke measurement solutions for different industries. So if there are industries like retail who are looking at footfalls, then how do we help them understand the impact of advertising on our solutions to track these metrics? I mean, of course, market mix modeling is the North Star of having an ROI version of all inputs, but enabling and you know, offering bespoke solutions to also help brands build this measurement solution. So a combination of tools, short-term and long-term stuff.
You know, this particular topic is something that we can talk about till the cows come home, but there is a nice red blaring sign over there which says our time is up. And I don't know whether we have time to ask the audience a couple of questions, do we? So, yeah, so we do not have the time, you know, to take the questions at the panel at the moment, but I'm sure all of our panelists and esteemed guests are going to be around. You could probably ask them any questions that you have later on. But thank you, all of you, for sharing your insights. I think this is just the start of our conversation. There is a lot more to unpack, and I personally can't wait to learn more because this is just a tip of the Titanic iceberg. So thank you so much for taking the time and for that insightful conversation. Thank you.